sometimes a while into therapy, but they'll finally say, there's this other thing that I haven't told you yet.
Someone pointed it out and said like, oh, look what Penny's doing. Like, that's a really weird thing to be doing with her face. And like, I just felt this burning shame all of a sudden.
If you're having that experience when you first try self-compassion, it's completely normal.
Yeah.
Completely normal, and it can happen for ages. And it will feel often this feeling like, this feels like I'm making this up. This doesn't feel right. It feels like I'm lying to myself. I don't believe it. It feels wrong.
We would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Wurundjeri and the Boon Wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, which is where this podcast is recorded. And we would like to pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging.
Hi, I'm Penny Moody.
And I'm Angie Green, and we are the hosts of It's Not What You Think,
A podcast about the horrors and hilarities of living with OCD. That sound all right? Okay.
Yeah. Welcome back to our amazing psychologist and clinical psychologist, Dr. Andrea Wallace. Andrea, you actually studied a PhD in shame in OCD. Mm-hmm. Can you talk us through why you chose that as a topic?
I started the PhD back maybe 12 years ago, and at that time Brené Brown was really big, and she was talking about shame and vulnerability, and I found her work was really helpful and really impactful for me. And so I was a bit determined to study shame, and I was going to be looking at shame and resilience, and I did a whole lot of work of looking at that, but then kind of found my way through to shame in OCD. There wasn't much talk about shame in OCD. So there was talk about all kinds of feelings, like mainly like guilt and anxiety and disgust, but not really shame. And because OCD is really about a sense of the self being bad, it felt really important to me to have a look at that as an important topic.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you just mentioned guilt. Can you just talk us through the differences between shame and guilt?
Yes. So guilt is a feeling which is around I've done something bad, whereas shame says I am bad. So in guilt, there will often be a sense of wanting to seek forgiveness and to reconnect, whereas in shame, there's a sense of I am bad, I need to hide, I need to withdraw, I need to shrink away, and I want to stay disconnected. I don't want other people to know me now. I want to withdraw. And so there will be, but often we can also have an experience where we'll be calling a sensation guilt, but it might be laced with shame. So we can actually have a person saying, I feel so guilty, I feel like I'm so bad. And so they will be using the word guilt when what they will actually be referring to is a shamey guilt. So we can have a complex experience too.
And is shame so prevalent, Andrea, because OCD is ego dystonic?
Yes.
And would you be able to explain to people what that actually is and why shame plays such a big part?
Yeah. In OCD.
In OCD.
Yeah, absolutely. So in OCD, the unwanted intrusive thoughts, images, urges, sensations, those obsessions are ego dystonic. They are inconsistent with our sense of self. They're inconsistent with who we want to be, inconsistent with our values. And so often you'll find that the obsession or content will be in a particular domain where it hits right at the sense of self, an important sense of self, an area of sense of self. Oh my God, I said that sentence like 15 times.
That's okay. That's all right. That's all right.
Where it hits at a part of the self that feels really important to that person. And so if the person really cares about being caring, then they might have thoughts about being reckless. If they find it really important to keep their family safe, they might have obsessions around feeling like they are putting their family in danger. If they find it really important to be moral, they might have obsessional content around feeling or being immoral. So the obsessions kind of present this threat to the self. They present this threat that says this could make you bad, or maybe you are bad already, or maybe you have been bad in the past, that maybe you're going to be cut off from everybody else, but also maybe you will be so ashamed that you'll be cut off from your own self, that you won't love yourself anymore, that you will find yourself unlovable, that you won't want to be with yourself anymore.
And you've explained that to us, Andrea, as like internal and external shame.
Yep.
So what you're talking about there with like finding yourself unlovable, that's internal shame.
That's right. So that's internal shame, finding myself unlovable, and kind of having the relationship. And it's funny kind of talking about the self as multiple, but that's normally how we will see ourselves. People will say, I feel so ashamed of myself. And so there's this part in us that is shaming this kind of other part. And that divorce, that break in that relationship is extremely painful. It's extremely aversive, and we don't like to feel that way. And so because that pain is so hot, it will cause people to engage in compulsions in order to try to get back into safety, to restore their relationship with themselves.
Yeah. I remember talking to you about a really difficult topic, like a very like taboo topic, OCD sort of subtype. And I remember you saying to me, you know, I think you're worried about, like, I think this is all about internal shame and the fear of abandoning yourself. And like, I had such a reaction to that. It made me feel so sad and like very emotional. And I think I kind of pictured like one of my kids being like abandoning themselves, which was like just felt awful to me. But I think being able to name that and kind of see that for what it was really helpful for me, because I realised that's exactly what I was doing.
Yeah.
Do you see that a lot?
Yeah. It's a really common experience. And sometimes it can even be helpful to kind of imagine that in those moments where we will kind of turn away from ourselves, often we're turning away from a part of ourselves which is quite a young part. And so sometimes we can even kind of imagine when we're healing shame is coming back to look after that little part of ourselves that was kind of going, you've turned away from me, you've left me out in the cold, please take me back. I didn't mean to be bad, I didn't mean to be wrong. And so we can kind of come back in to look after those parts that have otherwise kind of felt like they've been left in this space where they can't come back into safety with the self.
Yeah.
And I feel like the other part of what so many people with OCD may experience as well is external shame. So not being able to share their thoughts and feelings or the misery that they find themselves in, because it's essentially the exact opposite of who we know ourselves to be. But also if you're speaking to someone that doesn't experience OCD, how do you explain these thoughts? Like, you already know that they're illogical, but they have consumed my entire soul and my entire brain. And so that extra added of exhaustion of the external shame of, I can't tell people this because they'll then think I'm dangerous, or I'll lose friends or family or my partner, whatever it might be, is... Do you also think, that external shame plays a massive role in OCD? Yeah.
Absolutely huge. And it plays a massive role in OCD, but also in people not seeking out treatment.
Yeah. Yes.
And sometimes treatment can also be like a bit of an unsafe place. Sometimes for some people, their experiences might be kind of disclosing unwanted thoughts or unwanted sensations or urges. And then having the person that they're disclosing them to not hold them safe, which can be really, really hard.
Totally. Even, like, I remember speaking to my GP about it and literally thinking that they would call the police. Like, you know, I'm like, I know that this isn't normal, but this is what I'm So even getting that diagnosis or sharing it with someone was, I literally thought that I'd be punished for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, in therapy, it's probably one of my favourite parts is being able, because of this, because I have had so much exposure to so much OCD content.
You've seen it all.
Nothing will shock Andrea. Nothing.
That experience of being able to have a person first of all admit what's going through their minds and to be able to hold them safe in that and see the relief of, oh, you're not going to reject me, you're going to look after me, you don't think I'm bad, like that. And that is
It's like shedding of shame.
It really is.
In real time.
It really is.
Yep.
And sometimes people will be holding stuff. So they'll come for some sessions and then it won't be until like sometimes a while into therapy, but they'll finally say, there's this other thing that I haven't told you yet. And that, and being able to hold it and just be like with that moment can be really helpful for the shame to drip off.
Amazing. And compulsions aren't always, I think there's this misunderstanding that compulsions are always external.
Yeah.
So especially when it comes to shame and guilt and obsessive compulsive disorder, are you able to explain to people that not all compulsions are external and what invisible compulsions might look like?
Absolutely. So we might have compulsions which might be mental rituals. And so mental rituals might be around, I might think over an event in the past and think it through and kind of analyse it, see where might I have done something bad, where might I have done something wrong, how might people think about me or feel about me if they knew that I'd had that kind of thought. They might have analysing their bodies, like what does this sensation mean about me, what does this feeling mean about me, what does it mean that I looked in that direction, what does it mean that I had that kind of thought. And so there'll be so replaying, analysing, trying to make sense of. There might be internal rituals like trying to suppress a thought, trying to make a thought go away. It may be they'll have an experience of trying to undo a thought. So having a thought and then trying to undo the thought, thinking the good thought, that a thought that could replace a bad thought, that could make me a good person, because I can't have thought that. So maybe if I think this instead, this will mean that I'm actually safe. Yeah. So it'd be those kinds of mental rituals.
I have this memory of being, on holiday, summer holidays with a whole lot of my cousins, I think it was, and I was having all these facial tics at the time, which I think was kind of I guess it was kind of a compulsion and a response to anxiety. And someone pointed it out and said like, oh, look what Penny's doing. Like that's a really weird thing to be doing with her face. And like I just felt this burning shame all of a sudden. And it was probably even from before that moment. But after that I was like, oh, I can't be seen to be weird. Like if I'm going to do this, I need to kind of remove myself. So do you think that's the case, that we learn from a really young age that our compulsions should be hidden and there's a shame in that?
Yeah, I think that often people would have no idea that the person next to them has OCD, that they might be hiding compulsions all day long. Often you'll find that people will be hiding and holding compulsions all through the day and kind of keeping track of what kinds of obsessions that they've experienced, and then will act out the compulsions once they're in a safe space.
Yeah.
So people can not even know that their partner has OCD, might not know that their child has OCD. So, and sometimes if during the day when a person feels exposed, they might hide their physical compulsions and instead perform mental rituals.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just important for us to talk about what could be like the antidote to shame, which in many cases is self-compassion. And I've talked to a lot of people who have OCD over the last couple of years, and for a lot of them, I think whenever I mention self-compassion, because I've done a lot of that work with you, Andrea, and I found it so useful, but I just have this sense that like a lot of people initially are like, absolutely not doing that. That seems a little bit too airy-fairy. I want to do evidence-based treatment that's just going to just knock it out of the park. I'm not going to spend time on self-compassion. Do you see that kind of attitude?
Yeah, absolutely. So people will so often be really reluctant to engaging in self-compassion, and I think there's a few different reasons why they might be more reluctant. And one of them is because often when we're experiencing unwanted intrusive thoughts, images, urges, sensations, there will be a sense of feeling like I need to hate this experience. I need to hate myself while I'm having this experience. I can't feel pleasure. I can't feel soft. I can't feel that I'm a loving I can't love myself. I can't feel that I'm an acceptable person while I'm having these experiences. And so it can feel like this self-criticism, this self-loathing can be a way that people kind of protect their sense of themselves. That I am a person who hates this experience. I'm a person who hates these feelings, these sensations, these thoughts. And so in self-compassion, what we're really asking a person to do is to turn towards the experience with love, with kindness, with tenderness. And so it can feel a bit threatening to be able to be with a thought or a sensation that feels really aversive, and to be able to turn towards the self and say, I love me while I'm having this really painful experience.
Yeah, I think in my experience, and I've noticed this only in the last couple of years, but if I'm experiencing an obsession, I'm kind of going down a spiral, I'll immediately turn to some kind of like self-punishment. So it could be quite subtle. Like I've just noticed when I'm in the car and I've got music playing and like I get hit with like some kind of intrusive thought, I'll turn the music off straight away. Be like, no, I can't have that. I can't be enjoying that. Yeah. And there are just like subtle things that I've only really just started noticing, and it's like I can't be experiencing joy whilst experiencing this intrusive thought. They can't occur concurrently.
Can't coexist.
They can't. Yeah. And a lot of the work we've been doing, Andrea, is like, especially even over the last couple of months, is like as an exposure, exposure and response prevention therapy is like when I'm experiencing some kind of mental entanglement, the exposure will be searching for joy in that moment. So like looking up funny memes or sending memes or, just doing something that brings me joy. And it was really hard at first, but I found it so helpful. Yeah. So often, and I said before, self-compassion, like a lot of people maybe won't want to do it because they want evidence-based treatments. But I'm assuming this is evidence-based, a lot of this.
So often exposure and response prevention, we're just effectively just exposing a person to their unwanted intrusive thoughts, images, urges, and then dropping the compulsions. And it's really important to be treating this, the self-criticism, the withholding of pleasure, the withholding of joy, as their compulsive behaviours. Yeah, they're behaviours that say this thought isn't really me, or I'm only going to treat myself like I'm worthwhile, like I'm lovable. Once this thought is clean and gone, and once I've sorted it out, and once I know for 100% certain it's not true, then I can be soft with myself. And changing that narrative and saying, I can have these thoughts, these images, these urges, these sensations, I can have that, and I can love on me. I can hold myself with such sweetness. It really helps to address this kind of underlying belief that this thought makes me bad. We want to treat me like I'm just the sweetest, most gentle, divine little creature having this really difficult experience. So, while the thought's there, while the thought's going,
Yeah. I remember when we first started with that as well, Andrea, when you, in your beautiful way, was like, the more you lean into it, the more it has a tendency to dissipate. And in that moment, I was literally like, if I lean further into this, I'm not going to survive it. I'm so haunted by this fear, this doubt, this shame, this guilt, this not knowing. If you tell me, because I was so reluctant for a really long time because, my thought process was if I lean into this, I won't survive it. It's too sickening.
So reluctant Angie to do ERP, to lean into it that way, you mean?
Totally. There would be quite a few sessions early on when Andrea was like, have you done this? And I'm like, oh, absolutely not. Because, I'll end up vomiting all over myself or whatever. And I was reluctant to kind of also be like, self-compassion, like this beast, like this OCD beast is too big that any type of love or self-compassion is going to make no difference, like as if it would. But then when starting the practice, and this is another thing that I would really like to share, and of course it's only my experience, but the different ways that Andrea has helped me release shame and guilt and fear is by doing somatic work, specifically EMDR, which coming into, before seeing Andrea and essentially just doing talk therapy for two decades, even when Andrea mentioned EMDR, I was like, cool, she's eye rapid movement. I'm like, that sounds legit. That sounds like something that'll work. But anyway, we worked with core memories and belief systems that added so greatly to my shame and fear around how I felt around OCD and thoughts. And it was when that started moving for me and, still, as Andrea knows, a lot of work to do, but I actually felt the shift in my body. I feel things very viscerally. And so when I could actually feel that love and self-compassion, that is when, a lot of my obsessions, of course, didn't go away, but started to dim. And it was like, I actually can have this obsession and still hold myself with conviction and love because little Angie, my inner child Angie, which we've worked a lot on as well, she deserves that. And so that means this Angie deserves that. And, I just would love to know, Andrea, your point of view around, different techniques of working with shame.
Yeah.
And can you just explain what EMDR is, Andrea? Because there might be some people who have never heard of it.
Yes. So EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Totally. It's so fine and normal.
And it involves kind of bringing to life or bringing to mind a memory, bringing to mind the belief really effectively often about the self. And so often there'll be a memory, then there's a really difficult belief that's kind of knitted into that memory. And with the work of the eye movement and staying with that memory, we can challenge and shift out that belief about the self and put in a more adaptive belief. So it may be that there might be a belief like I'm responsible for keeping everybody safe. And then we can take that out and say, that's not on me, it's not my responsibility. It can take out a belief of I am bad and put in I am okay, I am human, I am acceptable. So that's and doing that work with memories, I think that one of the reasons why it can be so helpful is because often when we're having an experience in the here and now, where it brings to life a particular kind of emotion, then if there are really hot memories where that same emotion occurred, we kind of have like a superhighway to that memory, to that experience as a child. And if that experience as a child was really hot and really painful, it kind of feeds the intensity of the distress in the here and now. And you know how hard it is when the feeling associated with an intrusive thought is really hot, then it's so much harder to resist engaging in compulsions. So that's how I kind of conceptualise working with memories in order to make the work in the here and now around current intrusive thoughts more effective. Does that make sense to you, Angie?
It makes perfect sense to me, and it has been one of my saving graces in terms of I was going to say recovery from OCD, but living with OCD because it's certainly, I still have these intrusions and these thoughts, and when I'm not feeling my best, I do go into my compulsions, which of course then starts that vicious cycle. But we work a lot on my memories and self-beliefs, and it's kind of, for me, letting myself off the hook a bit, being like, oh, okay, this is really hard, but this can all coexist. I can be human. Like, I'm just doing my best, and I can still experience these thoughts and compulsions and be a lovable person, a good friend, a good human being, a good partner, a good mum. I can be all these things because I am human and I'm allowed to be human. That's where, so much has helped shift for me with that work.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I think, so if we're looking at other ways to work with shame, one of the most profoundly important experiences when we're experiencing shame is to be able to share what you're experiencing and have somebody else say, oh, me too.
Yes.
Isn't it just so beautiful?
So healing when you speak to someone else who's had the same experience, or doesn't even have to be the same, but something similar. It's someone who gets it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Benny and I often just have conversations and just be like, don't even finish the thought, and it's just like, oh yes,
I've had that one.
Yeah, and
I had it this morning.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I think this is why for us this podcast is so important, because Penny was the first person through her visibility, and I was in my 30s when I first heard Penny's story, and I just broke down because I was like, that is the first person I've heard present similarly to me. And even just that one person, it was like, oh, and if we can grow this community where there's no judgment here, there's no shame. Yeah. Like, I often joke, but don't joke at all, that literally someone could say any thought to me and I'd be like, been there. Totally. Whereas, that external shame as well, but I've also received that of I hid my OCD for so long because when I did try and explain it to people, there would be that, and people that I trusted and were well intentioned, but it was often met with, I just thought you were looking for attention, or that thought's ridiculous. So if you do think that, then maybe you do want to do those things, and it's like,
just adds to the shame.
It just adds to the shame, and it's like, oh my God, I can't even speak about this, and that's why, again, coming back to our wives speaking about this, it's just like safe spaces are crucial I feel for people with OCD to survive, to thrive, to flourish.
Yeah.
That essence of shame is just poison.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And I think there might be quite a few people listening to this who have kids who have OCD, or maybe, think they might have OCD. And while it might be hard to necessarily find other kids that they can talk to, for example, to dispel the shame that is probably already creeping in or has crept in with their thoughts, is there a way that people who don't experience OCD, so maybe their parents or loved ones, can kind of work with that shame or try to help reduce that shame, even by just validating their experience?
Yeah. I think validation is absolutely key. So validating, saying, yep, it makes sense to me that you might feel upset about having that thought, and then normalising. So normalising. We all have weird thoughts sometimes. We all have thoughts that can upset us sometimes, that can feel hard, and it doesn't make you bad. We can have all kinds of thoughts and you're still a good person, to be able to kind of hold that you don't have to take the thought away in order to be a good kid. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts about how you would otherwise work with it from having had the experience that you've had?
No, I think that's key, and I think I was lucky enough to always have that validation as well, and having that like someone listening without judgment. I think that's really important. I think, you know, and we won't get too deep on this. This is obviously not an episode all about kids and OCD, and that can be very specific. But I think maybe there's also, like we said before, this shame that creeps in around compulsions. So it could even be, you know, whilst you're frustrated probably with, you know, your kid or your loved one performing compulsions, sort of being visibly frustrated or telling them not to do it, or like that can only add to shame, I imagine.
Yes. And sometimes it can be helpful to externalize the OCD, to be able to talk about the OCD, to be able to say, oh, it looks like the OCD is being really bossy at the moment and it's trying to keep you in this loop of having to go back and wash again and again and again. And I can see that's really hard for you. To be able to kind of talk about it as an externalized kind of entity can sometimes have this bit of kind of, it removes it from my sense of self so that I'm not being a bad kid kind of getting caught in this loop. I'm kind of experiencing this really difficult, having this really difficult experience that's impacting me and kind of keeping me caught.
Yeah.
So that externalizing bit can sometimes be helpful.
Definitely, yeah. And I also think, you know, there'll be people out there who maybe want to get help and, you know, practice self-compassion with a psychologist but might not be able to for various reasons. Do you have any like exercises or little things that maybe you can do with us now, just that people might be able to practice at home?
Yes, absolutely. So first of all, Chris Germer and Kristen Neff are actually the people who are amazing on this stuff, and they've got so many amazing free resources. So look them up. They're really great.
Okay. That's awesome to know.
Really good. If we maybe even just talk about what self-compassion is to begin with. So
we skipped that part.
Oh yeah. Why? Yeah.
So if we look at self-compassion as being, first of all, noticing that we're in pain or that we're experiencing some kind of distress. So it might be physical pain, might be emotional pain. And so turning towards that experience and turning towards it with kindness and with a desire to offer ourselves comfort, to offer ourselves soothing, and also to see if we can help to meet our own needs. And so some of the ways that we can start to practice this is just to take a moment to really just turn inwards and to actually find out what on earth is going on in there. And so you can just, do you want to have a little practice of doing it together?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So should we close our eyes or just like
you can close your eyes if that's okay.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. So just take a moment. First of all, just notice the feeling of your feet and the feeling of your hands. And noticing the parts of your body that are touching the chair. And noticing the rise and fall of your chest and your belly as you breathe. And then we're just wanting to see if we can notice any kind of sensation, any kind of feeling that might be, even in the least bit, just a little bit distressing or a little bit hard, just a moment of pain. So sometimes it might be a little bit of tension in your body. Sometimes it might be a little bit of a difficult emotion, a little difficult feeling. And often feelings will sit in places like your throat or your heart, your tummy, your shoulders. So just, first of all, just noticing what's there. And then naming the experience. So I might have an experience and I might say, oh, I feel a bit anxious, or I feel a bit sore, or I feel tired. Just noticing what's there and giving it its name. And then we can offer ourselves soothing. One of the ways that we can do that is actually by bringing your hand to the area in your body where there is some kind of tension or pain. So you might offer your hand to your heart or to your belly or to your throat, and just noticing that we can give ourselves soothing in this kind of physical way. For some people, That kind of soothing might be like a little tap or a little rub, a little massage, something that says, I offer myself soothing in this moment. And sometimes we might also offer ourselves a word. And so we can sometimes offer ourselves a kind name to ourselves. So it may be my love, my sweetness. There's this word that comes up for me, which is darling heart. And I don't know why. I've never been called that before, but that's the word that always comes up, is darling heart. So I see you and I see myself in this moment of pain, and I want to bring myself soothing, and I want to bring myself comfort. And I'm not going to require that this experience go away. I still offer myself soothing and comfort. Breathing in, allowing for there to be space around the feeling and allowing for that experience to be accepted. Chris Germer talks about this beautiful idea, which is affectionate breathing as well, where he says when you're breathing in and out, we treat that breath like it's cradling you like a child, so that the breath itself is affectionate. That it rocks you like you're in a boat, a gentle boat on the ocean, being gently rocked by your own breath.
That is so lovely.
Isn't it beautiful?
I love it.
And there's also this beautiful idea, which is that really self-compassion is in our tone. So you can give yourself any beautiful, sweet name, but if you say it in an aggressive kind of tone, it completely undoes it.
Soothe yourself.
Come on, why am I feeling this? I shouldn't be. Just not really helpful. And so we just want to bring like an affectionate tone to any word. And so even if you called yourself marshmallow, as long as like this, the tone says, I love you, I'm here for you, I'm holding you, I'm not going to run away, I'm not going to leave you, I'm not going to abandon you, you're important to me. That's what kind of self-compassion feels like. So there you go. How did you find that?
It's so funny because like my initial reaction to anything like this is like, no,
Yeah.
run away. But it's lovely.
It's so beautiful. And I don't know whether this will be helpful. It's not, and it'll be no surprise to you, Andrea, but like, especially if you're a visual person, like I think a lot in colour. So like holding that space and like bringing white light or like a gentle light into soothing instead, because I often see my feelings in colours. Is that okay?
We'll do another episode on that.
We can discuss that in our next personal session, Andrea.
I love them.
But yeah, those warm colours as well, like actually help soothe the body if you're a visual person.
But I think, Penny, also that, yes, I think colours are gorgeous. Bring in all the colours, all the warmth, all of the textures, absolutely. But I think, Penny, that experience of, I recoil, I think it's really important for people to know that when you first start practicing self-compassion, it can feel awful, like really, really awful. First of all, self-compassion, when we finally kind of turn towards ourselves and say, hey, I'm going to offer you love. Sometimes the experience is, now I can feel just how unloved I have felt. And so that can be so painful. And then there can also be this bit that says, but I don't deserve this. And all of the not deserving can rage against the offering of love. And so knowing that this work is really, really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard. Just because it's got like a really
nice name.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah.
And so, and if you're having that experience when you first try self-compassion, it's completely normal.
Yeah.
Completely normal, and it can happen for ages. And it will feel often this feeling like, this feels like I'm making this up. This doesn't feel right. It feels like I'm lying to myself. I don't believe it. It feels wrong, is how it's often will feel at the start and for ages.
Yeah.
And then you will build the skill and it will start to land.
Yeah.
And you'll start to surprise yourself by going, gee, I was actually kind to myself in that moment. So it is a skill.
Practicing skill.
Yeah, and it does make sense that especially if you have experienced OCD or really any kind of mental illness for years, you do start to believe all the worst things about, that you've told yourself about yourself. And if you have abandoned yourself and then you're suddenly like, no, I'm gonna be soft and kind to you, it's like absolutely not.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely worth saying. And I remember something you telling me, Andrea, around even like, if you're experiencing an intrusive thought or you're going into a bit of a spiral, like something I tend to do just first up is this kind of like self-validation straight away, being like, oh, this is so hard. It is so hard to be experiencing this thought or this feeling right now. Like this sucks. Yep. This is the worst. Like this is a really, really hard thing to be experiencing right now. Yep. And no wonder you're feeling like worried about it and panicking. Like this is hard, which is not to say at all that what I'm thinking is true, but it's just like this is a hard thought to have.
Yes.
I found that really helpful.
I think it's so helpful.
Yeah.
And often people will only really find those words, which are such beautiful words. And if everybody could say those words to themselves 10 times a day, that would be amazing. But often we can't find those words until we're in a moment and we think, what would my dearest friend, if they came to me, what would I offer to them? If they came to me with this experience, they came and they said, oh, I'm having these thoughts, these images, these urges that are coming up, and they feel so bad, and I feel like I might be bad. I feel like I might be wrong. I feel like you might not want to be my friend if I even told you what's going through my mind. If they came to you, and if you want to actually name them in your mind and go, if this friend with this name came to me with this experience, how would I want to respond to them? And often that's when those kinds of words come up, that kind of validation, that kind of course, darling, I'd want to hold you safe. Of course, I would want you to feel like you are acceptable just as you are in this moment, that you don't have to be different in order to be loved by me. That often will only come up because we're imagining the other person. But it helps to provide this script for, that's what self-compassion would sound like. Yeah. And then if we can kind of open our arms and say, I'm just going to try to give myself just a little bit of the love that I would offer to my bestie if they came to me with this same experience, that can sometimes help to open up that compassionate space.
Yeah.
But those words are great.
Yeah.
Good work, Penny. Beautiful. Tick.
You are a good person.
You are.
An elephant stamp.
Good work. Oh, totally. And another tip that really helped with me that you gave me, Andrea, which my neighbours would see me do this and just think, my God. But I take my shoes off and I go out the front and I feel the grass under my feet and I hold my hands out and see that that's actually where my body ends.
Oh, yes, we did this too.
Yes. And why that's actually really helpful in that moment is it's because, giving myself a grounding and a breath, but also visualising that, because as we know, when our thoughts and worst fears are replaying in our bodies and our head and our souls, it feels like, well, especially to me, like the whole world is what I'm thinking and that I'm responsible for everything. And it's like when you actually are grounded and you can, see your fingertips and it's like, actually, this is where I end. It, for me, that's a moment of self-compassion because it's allowed me to come back into my body and be like, you are a very small speck in this very big, beautiful world.
You're not responsible for all the hardships that have existed.
Ever. Yes. And, I don't know, that in that moment it may not be for everyone, but just kind of recognising that that really settles my body.
Yeah.
And then it's only for me when my body is not so overstimulated that I can even begin to allow that space, instead of like when you're super heightened and you're like, you know, I need compassion. I love myself. Like, it's like it doesn't work. You know, you've got to ground yourself before you allow that space, I feel.
Yeah.
I found that super helpful as well. I remember when you first got up and you were explaining it, I was like, oh no.
I know.
And then I got it. And then after a while, I was like, I get this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. I think
Totally.
the responsibility and power coupling is really important, and that we've got so much. Often we'll have a sense of I've got responsibility for all of these things outside of myself that I don't have any power. There's a kind of the Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility, but also where you don't have any power, you don't have any responsibility.
Yes.
And really kind of being able to see, I've just like picked up this idea that I'm responsible for that without any ability to actually influence that, you know, those people.
Yeah.
So, Andrea, do you think there's an actual cure to shame, or is it a daily practice of loving ourselves which combats it?
Yeah, look, and a daily practice, beautiful, absolutely. But shame also is just an emotion as well, and it will come and go. And it is really aversive, and it's a really painful emotion. But even just being willing to actually go and visit with the shame and kind of go, here is this experience, and this experience is really hard. Feelings like to kind of move through us. So we can have this kind of a shame-prone kind of self, but we also can have feelings come and go. We can practice self-compassion. We can practice staying connected to other people, even when we otherwise feel like, I'm supposed to be disconnected now.
Yeah.
That practice of saying, I am going to treat myself kindly. I'm going to engage with joy. I'm going to engage with pleasure. 'Cause there is this kind of concept of interrupted joy. So that shame is this bit, especially this, we can have this kind of concept of like a little kid like running to their mum and going, with like this big like joyful thing, and the mum kind of going, oh, get away with me, get away from me with your sticky fingers. No. And that moment of like, and the child goes and shrinks and like pulls away is kind of how we might
Shame might start.
Yeah, or even just a metaphor or a descriptor of what kind of shame can feel like. And so kind of opening back up your sticky fingers and getting loved while you're sticky, kind of, and loving yourself while you're sticky. Like while it's all mucky still, offering yourself love and kindness. I think, they're kind of the antidotes.
Yeah, I love that analogy.
Sticky fingers.
My kids always have sticky fingers. I have to remember that.
Snotty noses.
Yeah,
Like, come to me with your snotty nose.
That's the least of it. Yeah. I love that.
Embrace it. Don't push it away. The more you push it away, the bigger it gets.
The bigger it gets.
With
yeah.
anything, really.
Yeah. Well, Penny, do you have any other further questions for Andrea?
I've got 1,000 questions,
Yes,
and I could sit and ask
Yeah.
Andrea so many things, but then it might start turning into like, like confessions or reassurance. So we should probably stop there. But thank you so much, Andrea, for coming back and speaking to us again. And for giving us more wisdom. Like, this is such a big topic, and it's something we might get back to as well, because it's, we're just sort of scratching the surface of it. But I think I hope it's really useful for people. So thank you so much, Andrea.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. You're the best.
If this episode has caused any distress and you need to talk to someone, please call Lifeline on 131114 or see your local GP.